Today we're going to take a look at how we can solve an equation involving complementary, supplementary, or vertical angles. Before we go too far, it's important to review our vocabulary that we know. Complementary angles are angles that have a sum of 90 degrees. And we have supplementary angles. Supplementary have a sum of 180 degrees. And vertical angles. Vertical angles, remember, are the ones that are across from each other when two lines intersect. And those are going to have equal measures. They'll be equal to each other. And this picture, remember, has vertical angles there in blue, here in red, and there's even a hidden supplementary pair of angles here and here. So be careful for those intersecting lines. Let's dive right in. This problem tells us to find the values of x and z. So I'm looking at this to try to take in what I know right now. Okay, I'm looking at this saying, are there any that pop out that are kind of easy for me to spot right away? Well, I noticed that this angle right here, this 80-degree angle, and angle z are vertical. And since they're vertical, we know they have the equal measures. So we know right now that angle z must equal 80 degrees. And I'm going to just kind of write that in here instead so that I have it in my picture. It helps me a little bit. All right, so we've got z taken care of. Now, how do we figure out x? Well, there's a couple ways we could approach this, but what I'm seeing here is that if I take this 80-degree angle and this angle right here, together, that has to be 180 degrees. So I'm going to write an equation that I can then solve to find out what x is. So it looks like this. This 80-degree angle plus 8x plus 28, and I don't need the parentheses there, has to equal 180 degrees because those are supplementary angles. Now I'm going to use what I know about solving equations to figure out what x is. So we'll start by combining like terms. We have 80 plus 28, that's 108. And then we bring down our plus 8x, and that's all equal to 180. Then I'm going to take 108 off of both sides, solve my equation here, and I'm left with 8x equals 72. So to figure out what x is, I need to divide both sides by 8 in order to isolate that variable. And this tells me that x equals 9. All right, so let's go back and see if we solve the problem. We have z equals 80 degrees and x equals 9 degrees. Now, one thing you might be wondering is, how can x be 9 degrees? If I look at this picture here, I can see this is clearly an obtuse angle. Well, keep in mind that we're not saying this whole angle equals 9 degrees. We're just saying that the value of that x is. So really, we're doing 8 times 9, which is 72, plus 28, and that will tell me the value of this angle right here, and that will give us 100 degrees. All right, let's tackle another one. This problem tells us in the figure below, the measure of angle 1 equals 3x, and the measure of angle 2 equals x plus 76. So let's go in and write in what we know for each of those angles. So angle 1 is 3x. So, what I'm going to do here is just label this 3x. And then angle 2, I'm going to go put in x plus 76. It just makes it easier to work with that way. Okay, and now we're trying to find the measure of each of those angles. Well, what do we know about the angles? I see that together they make a straight line, so they must be supplementary, which means 180 degrees when you add them together. So let's use that to write an equation. 3x plus x plus 76 will have a sum of 180 degrees. Let's combine our terms to solve this equation. 3x plus x is 4x. 4x plus 76 equals 180. Let's subtract 76 from both sides so that we can figure out what 4x is. 4x is 104, and then in my final step, I need to divide both sides by 4, and I get x equals 26. So we haven't actually finished the problem because it doesn't ask us to find x, it asks us to find the angle measures. Well, if we know what x is, 26, then we can figure out the measure of each of those angles by plugging it back in to our original expressions. So if the measure of angle 1 is 3 times x, then instead of 3 times x, we're going to do 3 times 26. And 3 times 26 is 78 degrees. And the measure of angle 2 then, oh here, let's label this, measure of angle 1. And then the measure of angle 2 was x plus 76, so 26 plus 76, and we get 102 degrees on that one. So we can check our answer to see if it's correct by taking 78 plus 102, and they should equal 180 when we add them together. And what do you know? They do. So we're going to finish this off here by saying the measure of angle 1 equals 78 degrees, and the measure of angle 2 equals 102 degrees. And that is our final answer. Why don't you pause the video and try this problem by yourself, and then come back and check to see how you did. All right, I'm going to go through this one a little bit quicker now. So I'm looking at this, and I'm trying to find x and z. Z I'm going to start with because I can see that angle Z and that 105 degree angle together are going to have to add up to 180. So Z plus 105 equals 180 degrees. So I will get Z when I take 105 off of there. Z equals 75 degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and write that into my figure right away. All right, now let's figure out what x is. So I can use any number of facts here to figure out x. What I'm going to say is that this angle right here is vertical with this 105 degree angle, which means they have to be equivalent because we know vertical angles have the same measure. So my equation for this one will be 105 equals 5x plus 45. All right, so to solve this, let's start taking 45 off both sides. And I get an answer of, I have to do some long subtraction here, 60 equals 5x. And when I divide both sides by 5, I get an answer of x equals 12. All right, so we've now found the value of z and x. Let's make sure our answers stand out. Circle them, highlight them, whatever you got to do. We found the measure of both of those angles. Can you see another way we could have gotten the measure of x on this one? Another equation I could have written is I could have pulled on the fact that these two angles have to add up to 180 degrees. So a different equation I could have written would have been 5x plus 45 plus 75 equals 180. And if I go ahead and solve this equation, I'm going to have 5x plus 120 equals 180. I can subtract 120 off of both sides, and I get 5x equals 60. Did you see that before? Over here. Divide by 5, and we get x equals 12. So we could have used either our knowledge of vertical angles or supplementary angles, and either one would have gotten us to the same conclusion. Thanks for watching.